In the winter of 1871, as snow drifted against the barred windows of Hollowfield Union Poorhouse, a girl vanished. Not from the lanes or forests of Devon, but from a corridor bounded by brick and iron. Her absence was not discovered by constables nor mourned in parish sermons. It was noted only in the faintest of annotations, red ink, margin right, unsigned, one girl absent, unverified. The Hollowfield ledger was meticulous. 84 children recorded by name, by number, by hour of work and ounce of porridge. Yet this girl, no surname, no parish of origin, no baptismal entry, slipped through the very structure designed to contain her. She was present at morning chapel. She was seen sweeping dormitory C, and then not. Her cot was untouched. Her shift was folded. A pair of second-hand boots, one missing a lace, remained beneath her bunk. No broken lock, no loose grate, just silence. A silence made stranger by what followed. No internal investigation, no public notice, and, most tellingly, no one willing to sign the page that bore her name. A clerk raised the matter. He was dismissed within the week. A matron changed her story twice. An inspector arrived, then left without questions. The workhouse resumed its rhythm, its routine, its bureaucratic hum. And in place of the girl, a gap was institutionalized, left open, unnamed, unexplained. This is not folklore. This is not fiction. These are statements pulled from record books, marginalia, forgotten correspondence. The details are fragile, the witnesses contradictory, but the shape of the event remains. A child entered the system, and something came out. The other side. You are watching uncanny true. Some absences are louder than facts. The Hollowfield Union Poorhouse stood 3 miles east of Whitmore, at the end of a rutted road known locally as Blind Cross Lane. Built in 1836 to a design by the Poor Law architect Sampson Kempthorne, the institution followed the standard cruciform layout. An austere central block flanked by male and female wings, all enclosed by a 6-foot granite wall capped with iron. From a distance, it resembled a chapel with its windows bricked in. By February of 1871, the poorhouse held 112 inmates, most of them women, children, and the elderly. Of these, 84 were juveniles, segregated by age and sex into 4 dormitories, boys upper and lower, girls upper and lower. The children rose at dawn, 8 by 7, and were assigned tasks until the bell sounded at 4:30 for wash and inspection. On the 3rd of February, the day's routine appeared uneventful. The weather was dry but biting, with snow piled against the south wall and icicles thick on the lavatory roof. According to the daybook kept by matron Anna Fells, the children's morning chapel proceeded without incident. Attendance was confirmed at all 3 meals, breakfast of oat broth and bread, midday soup, and a supper of boiled turnip and dripping. At approximately 4:10 p.m., 13-year-old Margaret Elinor Glyde was observed sweeping the passage outside Dormitory C. She was wearing the standard institutional smock, grey cotton with black stitched cuffs, and a wooden tag around her neck engraved C41. Another girl, Sarah Plumstead, later recounted that Margaret had paused twice, once to tie her bootlace and again to look through the barred window overlooking the east courtyard. Nothing in her behaviour was deemed unusual. At 4:35 p.m., Matron Fells conducted the end-of-day corridor sweep. The broom was found leaning against the doorframe. The floor was half done. Margaret was gone. The dormitory was inspected. Her cot was made, her chamber pot unused. A folded note was discovered beneath her straw mattress. It contained no writing, only an imprint, as if words had been written on a sheet above it. The impression, though faint, suggested a single phrase: "I was not here." No alarms were raised. The workhouse bell remained silent. No search party was organized, and no communication was sent to the parish constable until 3 days later, and even then only as a passing reference in a quarterly report. The official register for that day, volume folio 143, lists all 42 upper girls. Margaret Glyde is not among them. Yet, in the margin beside the entry, there is an annotation in faded red ink. One girl absent, unverified. It is unsigned. The following day, rations were dispensed to the full number of children. No adjustments were made. Her name was not struck from the roll because it had never formally been entered. According to the record, Margaret Glyde did not exist, but her broom remained. Her boots remained. Her absence was total and unaccounted for, and so the crime lies not only in the disappearance of a child, but in the manner in which she was allowed to vanish within walls built to ensure visibility, accountability, and order. No witness, no culprit, no consequence. Just a blank line where a name should have been, and the faint smell of dust where a girl had stood. Margaret Elinor Glyde's existence is a matter of some dispute. The Hollowfield Poorhouse kept detailed records of its juvenile inmates, names, parishes of origin, medical histories, dietary notations, even instances of insubordination. But in Margaret's case, the official ledgers offer no certainty. Her name appears nowhere in the admission roll, nor in the baptismal registries of Whitmore, Collington, East Stedden, or the nearby chapelries. Yet multiple eyewitnesses attest to her presence, and the detail with which she is described suggests something more than invention. According to a handwritten memorandum preserved in the personal diary of overseer Thomas Delver, dated 12th of October 1870, a girl approx 13 years, fair hair, no known kin, was brought to Hollowfield under escort by a curate from Exeter. The curate's name is not recorded. No admission form survives. Delver's note adds, "Refused name, compliant, healthy, lodged dormitory C under provisional status." The phrase provisional status does not appear elsewhere in the workhouse records. Margaret's daily duties included sweeping the east corridor, tending to the dormitory stove, and assisting in the laundry room under supervision of Matron Fells. Inmate Sarah Plumstead, interviewed years later by a local folklorist, described her as quiet, always cold, with a way of walking like she was listening to something behind her. Plumstead recalled a specific incident on New Year's Day, 1871, when Margaret claimed that her bed had shifted in the night and that she awoke with her head against the footboard. She told no one else. Other girls remembered her speaking in a whisper or not at all. She is said to have recited psalms under her breath while folding linens, and once refused to step into the pantry because she claimed the floorboards had forgotten their number. When asked what she meant, she reportedly replied, "The planks don't match the ledgers anymore." A crude sketch believed to depict Margaret was discovered in 1932 during demolition of the East Wing. Drawn in graphite on the back of a meal inventory, the figure is seated, one leg tucked beneath her, with a look of fixed concentration. The drawing was unsigned, but the initials MG appear in the lower right corner. She is depicted holding a round object, possibly a marble or small spool, and appears to be staring into a mirror that reflects nothing. There is also a reference in Matron Fells's own diary to the sea girl with the quiet fingers. On 14th of January 1871, Fells wrote, "Observed subject in east corridor writing on mirror with fingertip, no medium. Traced symbols were non-alphabetic. Repeated the motion 3 times, each slower than the last. No reprimand issued." This entry is followed by a notation. Watch for recurrence. No such recurrence is recorded. Even Margaret's clothing presented curiosities. Her boots bore an unusual tread not issued by the Union. Her smock was stitched with the black thread uncommon to the Hollowfield stockroom. One of the staff seamstresses claimed the thread matched that used in Exeter Foundling Hospital until its closure in 1869. But no corresponding records have been located. No letters were ever sent on her behalf. No visitors came. Her bed was registered as C41, a cot adjacent to the corridor window, one of the coldest positions in the dormitory. It was said she never complained. If Margaret Elinor Glyde was a fabrication, then it was a fabrication agreed upon by a dozen children, 3 staff members, and at least 1 independent clerk. If she was real, then her disappearance was the vanishing not only of a person, but of all the usual apparatus by which a person is verified. Her name, her origin, her number, her place in line, all absent, all erased. Yet her memory persisted, not in ink, but in recollection. And the girl with the mirror-tracing fingers, the one who whispered to the ledgers and claimed to feel time moving under the floorboards, a child of the system who never truly entered it, a story nearly unwritten, except that she was seen, and that someone at least once remembered her name. The investigation into Margaret Elinor Glyde's disappearance, if it can rightly be called that, was neither prompt nor official. It began not with an alarm or inquiry, but with the quiet concern of Thomas Delver, clerk to the Board of Guardians for the Whitmore Union. Delver was a meticulous record keeper, a man whose personal diaries, now held in the Devon County Archives, reveal a near obsessive devotion to enumeration. It was he who first noticed that, for the week beginning 30th January 1871, the issued rations exceeded the recorded number of child inmates by 3. In an internal memorandum dated 6th February 1871, titled "Concerning a Void in Ledger and Lodging," Delver wrote, "Discrepancy of rations persists. 3 additional measures of broth and bread, unaccounted for since Monday last. No admissions recorded. Dormitory C, the likely source. Recommend immediate head count with cross-verification from staff duty logs." No such count was undertaken. In fact, Delver's memo was never formally received by the board. It was returned with a notation in red pencil, "Outside purview. Resubmit through Matron Fells." He did not resubmit, but in his private diary that evening Delver wrote, "Saw the corridor again. C41 remains unclaimed. No girl entered, but ration taken. Either ghost or gap. Neither good. It was not until 9th February, 6 days after the girl's disappearance, that the matter reached Sub-Inspector Lionel Haskett of the Devon Constabulary. Haskett was a man of limited ambition and habitual brevity. His investigative notes, which survive in the Exeter Police Archive, amount to 6 lines. The full report, filed under Miskey, Irregularities, Hollowfield, reads, "No evidence of forced entry or exit. Dormitory C secured. Staff report no irregular behaviour. No child registered under the name Margaret Glyde. Conclude clerical misstatement or unrecorded relocation." This was accepted without amendment. The Union Board filed no challenge. The Guardian's monthly meeting passed with no discussion of the incident. Margaret's name was never entered into the missing persons registry. It is only through the recollections of former inmate Sarah Plumstead, interviewed in 1897 by folklorist Edmund Calthrop, that a different picture begins to emerge. Plumstead described hearing a conversation between 2 staff members, Matron Fells and nursemaid Elsie Harbury, on the evening of 10th February. According to Plumstead, they stood near the linen cupboard. Matron said, "She's gone and I'm not asking." Elsie said, "But who'll write it down?" Matron said, "No one. That's the point." There is also evidence found in the workhouse's duty rota ledger for February 1871 of peculiar inconsistencies. Matron Fells is marked as on premises from 6 AM to 8:06 PM each day, except on the 3rd, where the entry is smudged and overwritten. The time column reads, "Matron out 4:15 to 4:05 PM. This contradicts her own testimony, in which she claimed to have found the corridor empty at 4:35. No explanation for her absence was ever offered. In March of that year, Thomas Delver was quietly removed from his post. No formal reason was given, but his replacement, Mr. Alfred Gubbin, was known to be more amenable to administrative discretion. Delver's final diary entry before his dismissal reads, "Still no amendment to the ledger, no closure, no error, but something missing all the same. A name not entered, a cot not claimed, and a broom still leaning." The investigation ended not with a finding, but with a reabsorption. The system swallowed the anomaly, dismissed its clerk, filed the broom, and moved on. What little that remains, Delver's notes, Plumstead's testimony, and a smudge on the rota, is not evidence in any legal sense. It is rather the outline of absence rendered legible only by persistence. And so the inquiry into Margaret Glyde concludes not in discovery, but in silence sanctioned by ink. The institution built to contain, record, and explain instead did precisely what it was never meant to do. It forgot, and made forgetting policy. By the spring of 1871, no mention of Margaret Elinor Glyde appeared in any formal communication issued by the Hollowfield Union. Her name was not included in the end-of-quarter summary submitted to the Board of Guardians. The Daybook of Matron Fells makes no reference to disciplinary measures, missing persons, or irregular dormitory conduct. The system had closed around the absence with remarkable efficiency, yet in the architecture of the building itself, in its paper trail and procedural aftershocks, a void remained. The east corridor where Margaret was last seen, linking the girls' dormitories to the laundry stairwell, was marked in an 1874 fire inspection report as subject to draft, inconsistent with exterior elevation. The brickwork there, unlike the rest of the structure, was irregular. Later, architectural surveys revealed that 3 of the corridor's load-bearing stones bore the remnants of engraved numbers, likely reused grave markers from the old Whitmore parish yard, repurposed without record. In 1883, during renovations initiated to accommodate a growing number of orphaned infants, the workhouse carpenter, a Mr. Joseph Mann, removed the wainscoting along that same corridor. Behind it, he discovered a square cavity in the stone wall, neatly bricked over from the inside, containing nothing but a single child's boot. The object was catalogued and stored in the Hollowfield supply annex, where it remained unclaimed for nearly 4 decades, until its presumed disposal during the clearances of 1921. The silence surrounding Margaret's disappearance was not merely procedural, it was cultivated. An oral history collected in 1909 by a parish curate visiting the poorhouse records the recollections of former nursemaid Elsie Harbury, then in her 70s and living in the almshouse at East Stedden. Harbury, though hesitant, admitted, "There was one who went missing long ago. The matron said she'd been reassigned, but we never saw her name on any other list, nor heard a peep from the guardians. It was as though she'd never arrived, never served, never been." The curate's notes add that Harbury was visibly distressed while speaking, and that she refused to say the girl's name, whispering instead, "I daren't. She might still be listening." A more concrete indication of institutional omission comes from the Parliamentary Commission on Poor Law Records conducted in 1913. Hollowfield Union was one of 7 institutions flagged for inconsistent enumeration across a 10-year span. A footnote in the report states, "Dormitory records for the female juvenile wing, 1869-1875, include multiple unsigned entries, anomalous numbering in bed registers, and at least 2 occasions where recorded deaths do not correspond to burial permits or physician's sign-off." Though no names are mentioned, researchers have long noted that the timing of these anomalies overlaps precisely with the period of Margaret's unacknowledged disappearance. One particular ledger page, Volume 9, Folio 143, has a tear in the lower margin. The damage has been attributed to routine wear, though the hole falls precisely where the signature of the attending matron would have been required. There are also traces of suppressed correspondence. A letter from Overseer Delver to Reverend Tomlinson of St. Bride's, dated March 1871, contains the line, "The matter of the absent girl remains unresolved. If she were ever entered, I cannot find her. If she was never entered, I cannot forget her." The letter was never answered. Reverend Tomlinson died later that year of a sudden apoplexy while preaching on the Feast of the Visitation. Hollowfield itself was closed in 1908 and partially demolished in 1911. The East Corridor, Margaret's Corridor, was razed first. Witnesses at the time remarked on the odd resistance of the structure. Workmen reportedly went through 6 chisels attempting to remove a single lintel. No commemorative plaque was installed. No mention of the disappearance was made in the closing reports. The building's final inventory listed the cot from C41 as disposed, unsuitable for retention. No further clarification was given, but even in erasure, traces remain. The silence that enveloped Margaret's story was not merely the absence of words, it was the presence of a design, a deliberate decision not to see, not to ask, not to remember. And in that refusal, a different kind of narrative emerged, one written not in ink, but in hesitation, evasion, and decay. A narrative held in place not by memory, but by the architecture of denial. In the century following the closure of Hollowfield Union Poorhouse, Margaret Elinor Glyde's name passed almost entirely from local memory. No monument marked her absence. No family laid flowers. The workhouse grounds, overgrown and fenced off by the 1920s, were gradually absorbed by pasture land and later a housing estate built in the 1950s. By then, only the old laundry tower remained standing, a squat, moss-covered edifice with boarded windows and a reputation for strange acoustics. But absences of a certain kind resist full erasure. In 2004, students from Whitmore Grammar School's Historical Society, under the supervision of teacher Dr. Helen Points, were granted access to the former Hollowfield site as part of a local heritage project. While excavating the area believed to have once formed the eastern dormitory corridor, they uncovered a small cache of artefacts: a child's leather boot, 3 iron buttons, and 4 clay marbles, each marked with shallow incisions. One marble bore the initials MG, another the number 41. A third was inscribed with a symbol resembling a reversed numeral 7, a mark not found in any known system of notation, but curiously repeated in graffiti, scrawled into the remaining stones of the tower. Dr. Points submitted the finds to the Devon Heritage Centre. The official report classed the objects as period-consistent children's playthings of indeterminate provenance. The marbles were retained in a rotating display on the life of the workhouse child. The initials were not investigated further, yet interest in the site persisted. In 2012, amateur historian and former Hollowfield resident Margaret Willoughby published a monograph titled "The Girl from the Margin: An Inquiry into the Unnamed Dead of Hollowfield Poorhouse." The work, largely ignored in academic circles, included interviews with elderly locals who recalled childhood warnings from their grandparents not to linger near the old east wall after sunset, not to whistle near the tower, and, most persistently, not to step where the stones counted wrong. One woman, Mrs. Eleanor Cripps, born in 1928 and raised less than a quarter mile from the site, recounted a rhyme whispered among village children in her youth: "East wind sings when one is gone, names forgotten linger on. Step not near the tower's base." That's where she left without a trace. In the same interview, Mrs. Cripps described a recurring event each year in early February: a sudden, localized drop in temperature near the east fence, accompanied by what she called a whistling like through teeth, not wind. She claimed this always occurred in the evening and lasted only a minute. Like the place was remembering something, she said. More recently, digital archives have preserved a small body of discussion surrounding the case. A 2018 podcast episode on Devonshire hauntings referenced the Hollowfield Poorhouse disappearance, citing Delver's memorandum and the unexplained rations discrepancy. Listeners submitted their own family lore. One woman recalled a great-grandmother who refused to pass by Blind Cross Lane after Candlemas, claiming the girl who never got a number walks the boundary still. Though no verifiable photograph of Margaret Glyde exists, the AI-generated reconstruction created by researchers at the University of Exeter in 2021, based on composite descriptions from oral history and the 1932 sketch, shows a thin-faced girl with hollow cheeks and unreadable eyes, seated on a cot, half-turned as if listening. Today, Hollowfield has been replaced by a row of mid-century bungalows and a car park. But in the corner of the car park, a single stone remains from the original wall, chipped, overgrown with lichen, and marked faintly with what looks like a hand-carved numeral 1. It is unlabeled. There is no plaque, no memorial, no certainty, just 4 marbles in a museum drawer, a ledger page with a hole in the margin, and a name that appears only in recollection. A girl removed, not by malice, perhaps, but by process, by omission, institutionalized and ritualized until no one questioned it. Still, she is not quite gone. Her story persists, not because it was preserved, but because it was not. She survives in the questions, in the shivering of the stones, and in the low hum of the archive that failed her. Some absences are louder than facts. If you found this story compelling and want to uncover more unsettling truths drawn from the historical record, remember to like this video and subscribe to Uncanny, True, where forgotten names, vanished lives, and the quiet horrors of the past are brought back into view. Some absences are louder than facts.